8 wins and 2 losses is the record of the Dallas Mavericks over the last 10 games with a healthy Luka Doncic. If we go back a little bit further, I'll give myself a little bit of a pat on the back because I made a video following a blowout loss to the Warriors, undoubtedly their worst loss of the season, giving up about 150 points to Kelly Oubre and Stephen Curry. It was a tough game to watch. After that loss, they've gone 14-4 with a healthy Luka Doncic in the lineup. And if we're going to say, well, you can't just discount all the games players have been injured because they've come up against injured teams as well, that's fair. So if you discount that and you just count their record following the loss to the Warriors, they've still gone 15-7, which is good for the 4th best winning percentage in the NBA. So despite those games facing injuries, they've still been one of the best teams in the NBA. And for a team that people like myself and others thought could be dangerous come playoff time after we saw what they did against the Clippers last season, to see them rack up wins against the Nets, the Clippers, the Nuggets, the Blazers, the Spurs, the Celtics, over this period of time in which they've posted the 4th best offensive rating in the league, have been middle of the pack defensively, which isn't great. We're going to talk about the defense in quite a bit of depth, but it has improved, as is their offense, and overall their team looks so much better than it did just 20 games ago. And all of a sudden we have to ask the question, are the Dallas Mavericks a potential threat in the West yet again? Now, before I go any further, if you could just drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, it's free. I make content like this every single day, and doing so, it just helps out a lot. So that would be appreciated. Now, I think it is important to preface that the Mavericks' struggles earlier in the season, a lot of it came down to continuity. They had injuries to Kristaps, they had issues with protocol, Josh Richardson, I remember missing a lot of games, Maxi Kleber, Dorian Finney-Smith, you name it, they were all missing games for several parts of the season. They also couldn't make any shots. That was a genuine thing. They just couldn't make shots. Their offensive rating took a huge dip from the best one in NBA history to like middle of the pack because of the simple reason they weren't making shots. Luka was shooting under 30%. Kristaps was still coming back and struggling a little bit. Josh Richardson hadn't hit his straps. He still hasn't really, but he was struggling even more so. All of these players weren't shooting the 3-ball particularly well, but since then, they've generated similar amount of looks, and now they're starting to hit their shots, and all of a sudden, their offense looks good. Live by the 3, die by the 3. I guess that's exactly what you've got to call the Mavericks, because the first 24 games of the season, they were bottom of the league in 3-point shooting percentage. However, they were still top 10 in attempts, which obviously isn't a good recipe for winning or a good offense. Since then, they've had the 6th best 3-point percentage and the 3rd most made threes, which has obviously contributed to a lot more wins and a lot better offensive play. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure that out. And like I mentioned, it doesn't really come from them just creating different looks, different opportunities. A lot of it comes from players hitting their shots. They're generating similar amounts of open looks. Luka Doncic is having the best shooting stretch of his career. Kristaps Porzingis is shooting pretty well. Tim Hardaway Jr. All of those guys are playing good basketball and shooting well from beyond the arc, which has been the main reason for them turning things around. It hasn't been any drastic things. It hasn't been them coming up against poor defenses. It's just been the simple matter of the fact they're starting to hit their shots. And I may as well actually talk about it now. I was going to talk about it later, but when we're talking about someone coming in to hit shots, they made a trade for JJ Redick. It kind of slipped under the radar, but I think it's a really nice move when you consider they gave up practically nothing. Shout out Wezawundo, same first name as me, but it's not exactly a huge asset you're getting rid of. And you bring in JJ Redick, who, despite his numbers not looking great on the Pelicans this year, if you look at the months he's played this year, and I'm someone who's watched quite a lot of the Pelicans games, so I can attest to that, as the season went on, he got better and better. And recently, the last couple of months, the last 20 or so games, he looks like the JJ Redick we know and love. 40% from 3, over 40% from 3, coming off screens, dribble handoffs, creating space and opportunity for driving lanes for the likes of Zion. He's going to do the same thing for Luka Doncic, Kristaps Porzingis. JJ Redick is still JJ Redick. And then, of course, Nico Melli. We have to make mention of him, who came in and hit 6 points, a couple of shots. Nico Melli, the GOAT himself. So they've got some players coming in, but JJ Redick is the main one to keep an eye on. Now, it's also needless to say that JJ Redick doesn't exactly fix their biggest issue, which is defense. We know they can shoot the ball. We know they can score the ball. I mean, they had the best offensive rating in the league last year. They were putting up huge numbers against the Clippers in the playoffs. They've got Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis. They've got offensive players. Tim Hardaway Jr. I've just got to shout out Jalen Brunson as well, because I always do that on every Mavericks video, and he's continued to play really damn well. But their offense isn't an issue. However, I still like the trade because I don't think there was much you could do to really fix their defensive issues unless you got like an Aaron Gordon, which I'm pretty sure they were interested in, but the price you have to pay for a team that I don't know if the Mavericks are quite there, that if they brought in an Aaron Gordon, it would push them over the edge, which we'll get into in a bit. But you don't want to throw away a few pieces that you might like in the future for now, because they've still got a young Luka Doncic. Kristaps Porzingis is still finding his feet again, and all of these reasons suggest to me that just wait it out for a season and see what you can do this year before you go all out on maybe a free agent or a trade. But getting back to it, their defensive issues, they have improved defensively. They started the season like a train wreck. They were bad. They were also missing pretty much all of their best defensive players, which is going to hurt you defensively. No kidding. They've improved defensively. KP's looking better. He's still struggling moving his feet. I mean, I saw him get blown by Alexei Pokusevski at the three-point line. That's a little bit of a concern. But his rim protection is back. He's blocking shots. He's at least a presence in the paint. He's rebounding the ball. Things that they weren't doing very well beforehand. And now all of a sudden, they're conceding the fourth least points in the paint over the last 22 games, which has helped their defense be competent. It's helped them be average, because defending the three ball is something they're struggling with. But the little things they've cleaned up, like second chance points, they've gone from a team that was allowing a lot of second chance points to the fourth least in the NBA. A lot of this comes down to rebounding, effort, energy, intensity, having their players back. A lot of things, but the reality is all these little things like rebounding the ball, second chance opportunities, points off turnovers, all of those things, they're doing a lot better at, which has helped their defense get to average. But to take that next step, it has to be guarding the three-point line, because they're getting cooked on the perimeter by opposing teams. Let's be honest. They're top 7 in threes conceded and top 7 in opponent three-point percentage as well. Now, this is the trade-off with protecting the paint. We've seen teams like the Bucks, the Pelicans this year, other teams get cooked on the perimeter because they're trying to protect the paint, and the Mavericks are no different. And you can understand why, because you've got someone like Kristaps Porzingis, who's a good rim protector, but he's not good out in space. So you want to suit his strengths defensively, and that's what they're doing. But you see them get torn apart by the likes of Damian Lillard, Stephen Curry, and we saw it with the Denver Nuggets last year in the playoffs against the Utah Jazz. Donovan Mitchell was putting up 50 points a game off just pull-up shots because Nikola Jokic wasn't pushing up because they didn't want him to defend in space. And we're seeing a similar thing with Kristaps Porzingis when they come up against the likes of Stephen Curry, Damian Lillard, all of those guys that have that quick trigger from three-point range or even mid-range. Now, how exactly do we fix this issue? That's a bigger question, and that's the reason I'm not an NBA coach, but something I've seen the Denver Nuggets do. They're still not a great defense, but they've got better at protecting the three-point shot, and something I see Nikola Jokic do is he knows he's not going to be great at defending in space. We all know that. Everyone knows that. But he kind of just puts an arm out. He flails out at the shooter when he knows that his man isn't going to come around off the screen and get there in time to guard the shot. So instead of going all the way up and getting caught on an island against one of the shiftier guards, sometimes he'll just flail out. He'll push up onto them and threaten to contest the shot, and then the defender will come around and get there in time. It might not work all the time, but it's something. It's better than just dropping all the way back and just letting an uncontested shot, or going all the way up and then letting them cook you on the perimeter. So if Kristaps can just do that, just flail, just throw an arm up, do something like that, maybe that's a potential thing that could help them on the perimeter, because we see teams pretty easily get to their spots and pretty easily set a screen and then get Kristaps out in space, even Maxi Kleber to a degree, Willie Cauley-Stein, all of these guys, they don't have that kind of flexible big apart from Kleber, but then they struggle on the boards and struggle protecting the rim, so they need to play the likes of Kristaps, so when he gets onto the perimeter, that's when things are an issue. I'm just throwing out ideas. Again, I'm not an NBA coach, but I've seen the Nuggets do that, and it's relatively successful. So maybe that's something they should do. Just start throwing your arms up. Like the inflatable man on the street. Just start doing that. Maybe that's something. Maybe that's probably why I'm not an NBA coach, but I'm throwing out ideas. The thing is with the Mavericks, you can see the clear picture they had in mind with their draftees. Obviously, we knew that at the time, but Tyler Bay and Josh Green were defensive specialists, and Josh Green looks a bit further ahead of the curve as opposed to Tyler Bay, but I still don't think he's quite there to make an impact in this year's playoffs, which is unfortunate, but if he can continue getting minutes this year, the next season he might be able to make a legitimate impact, because he's the kind of guy you want, a versatile, strong defensive wing who can come around screens, guard a few different positions. hopefully shoot the three ball a bit better than he has before, but he has shown flashes offensively as a lob threat, as someone who can get out in transition. If he can continue to show his improvement on the defensive end of the floor, that's the kind of player you're looking for as a Dallas fan and as a Dallas team. I think coming back to my original question, are the Dallas Mavericks a contender? Are they a threat? I think, like I mentioned, any team with the offensive potency they have can hold a threat. We saw it with the Denver Nuggets last year. They weren't a great defense, but the offensive potency with Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray ultimately helped them win games because those guys were unstoppable. You have the potential of a similarly unstoppable pairing in Luka Doncic and Kristaps, like they've shown recently, as Kristaps is starting to look better offensively. Defensively, they're average. Ultimately, I think it depends on matchup because there's some certain teams that I wouldn't want to face if I'm a Mavericks fan, considering the guys they have, like a Damian Lillard, like a Stephen Curry, even a Donovan Mitchell. Those kind of guys I think could be a serious threat to the Dallas Mavericks unless they can figure out a way to prevent them from shooting at such a high volume and such a high efficiency whenever they face them. If they can fix that and they can continue this offense, which I don't see slowing down, then yeah, they can definitely be a threat because offensively they're going to be great. And I think matchup dependent, they could make it through to the second round. They could cause a stir in the first round of the playoffs, and they could still be a legitimate team to watch out for. Put it this way, if you're a team like the LA Clippers, like the Lakers, we saw it last year, you're not going to want to face the Dallas Mavericks because that was a team without Kristaps Porzingis. JJ Redick's come in, Josh Richardson's come in, players are playing better, players look better than last year, so what can they do this year if they go up against a team like the Clippers, who I think are a better matchup, funnily enough, than a team like Damian Lillard and maybe the Trailblazers? That's my opinion anyway. Let me know your thoughts on the Dallas Mavericks. Are they a contender? Are they a legit threat? We definitely have to see a little bit more improvement from their defense. It's getting better, but guarding out in space is still going to be an issue with a 7'3" center who you need to protect your rim. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one that the Mavericks are trying to figure out, and I'm trying to figure out as well. Anyways, let me know your thoughts. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel. Other than that, have a good day. I'll catch you next time. Bye.